Hi everyone, this is a Strategy Gamer back again with a new video. Today we're going to cover something that has been, I guess, one of the larger learning curves since the No Step Back update, and that is supply. So supply was completely reworked in the No Step Back update, and now instead of entire provinces, such as I click there, that would have had its own supply value, this would have had its own supply value. Doesn't matter where you put people, as long as they're in there, the supply comes from there. Now, supply is calculated much more intricately in the sense that there are now supply hubs, which is where you pull supply from, and they have to be connected to the capital, where for some reason everything is sent there and then sent out again. And then from the supply hub to wherever these units are. We're looking at all these different colors and being like, well, what is all this? So based on our hubs, the closer you are to the hubs, the more supply you'll have. You'll see on the actual supply hub, it says there's 4.75 remaining supply. And then as you go away from it, we got 2.92, 1.94, 0.38, and 0.03. And so having troops close to supply hubs allows them to have more supply. And the farther away you get from supply hubs, the less supply they have. And supply is important because it just keeps your units equipped, allows them to fight better, and having low supply really affects their ability to fight. And if your supply gets low enough, instead of being able to keep up their equipment, they will start losing equipment, and that is awful. Having your troops actively lose equipment without fighting just makes them weaker for the future. You got to pull from your stockpiles to eventually resupply them. If they continue to take attrition, which is kind of over here, way over on the far eastern front, it's just a sink pool of materials that you produce for your country. And so managing supply is very important. Managing supply when attacking is very important. I'm not going to demonstrate any attacking today. That's probably going to be in my Let's Play series. Today I'm just trying to cover the basics of supply. So when working with supply, there's multiple ways to change the way supply is used. One of the easy ones is click on a field marshal that has a lot of troops on him, like this guy has 73 divisions. And you see this little mortarization priority right here. You can change that by clicking it through, and horses is the lowest rank, 2 trucks is the middle rank, and 3 trucks is the highest rank. And essentially what that does is that it'll pull trucks from your stockpile to supply everyone, and that will increase the ability for the supply hub to get more supply out to the area. If you have the industrial capacity to produce enough trucks, you should always switch to that, unless your army is desperately small. Maintaining that supply again is just so important because it just allows your army to just simply be as effective as it claims to be. And how is supply calculated? Well, it's calculated at division level on a province level. So it's divisions in a province. For example, each one of these infantry divisions, which is not necessarily a great infantry division, this is just good base, I suppose, will use 0.7 supply. So you take this guy right here, and you look, and you move him. Let's go this way. On pause time, we got 0.14 supply here, right? And he's going to walk over. And now we have no supply remaining in province because he's eating all of it up. So because of that, he's only receiving, according to this, 87% of the supplies that that this division needs, and that means they're going to have lower effectiveness and be able to get more men in there, more guns, whatever it may be, at a slower rate. And if I add too many people to one area, let's take these guys down here and let's just put them here in Mazir. I hope I pronounced that right. Alright, give them time to go there. And you'll notice this immediately pops up, and now there is no supply remaining here, and these guys are getting 11% of what they need. They are going to struggle. You'll notice that supply status right there is falling right at the bottom down there. 29, 25, 20%, and it's going to keep falling. And as soon as that hits 0, these guys start taking attrition. In fact, they already are. You've seen some 1% attrition, but that value is going to increase. All right, it seems to have been relatively capping off at about 9%, but the attrition has now climbed to 3%. So what does that mean? It means that each day there's a chance that every rifle in that will break. And now not all rifles are going to break at the same time, but some are going to break. And that is going to reduce their fighting strength, and that is going to make them overall a worse division. So you never really want to have so many divisions in one area that you are bleeding supply and bleeding strength. So instead of having all of them there, what's probably a better idea is to put them a little bit closer to the rail line, like this, and have them be like a defensive line along the rail line. With that, they should be able to maintain full supply with almost no concern. So let's take a look. Look at that. All of them now have supply again. They're now regaining what they need. And they will fight more effectively this way, even if they are more spread out. But that's okay, because we'd rather have, unless you're in a tight situation or you're on the attack, you'd rather have full supply all around. Now, many things can cause you to lose supply. Obviously, divisions. Of course divisions can. But there's other things, such as planes. Planes themselves need supply. Think of it as maintenance or oil or fuel deliveries, whatever you want to consider it. But planes themselves take supply. And so we're going to send all of our planes to this one airport. And we'll see how it affects supply. Let's take a look. So, we have... Hold up. I don't want to click that. 1.12 remaining supply. The planes themselves, which this isn't overstacked. You should never overstack an airfield, but we'll talk about that another time. The planes themselves, though, take supply. You'll see that these 94 planes take 0.26 supply. That's not bad. But when you're putting 2,000 planes on a single airstrip, that adds up over time. These fighters also take 0.26. These bombers take 0.33. And these naval bombers take 0.15. And I believe you can check that in, let's see, yeah, fuel usage, 0.21. So planes cost supply and fuel. And it's important to recognize that because you may be going like, oh, I only have like 4 divisions here, but they have no supply. Why is that? Well, you might have all these planes here. Oh, here we go. Okay, there we go. Now I figured it out. Okay, so let's move these guys back here. So we look at this, and this has 0.33 remaining supply. Okay, so, we could move one of these guys in. And look at that, we still have remaining supply. So let's move in another thing. And we're out of supply. And when we're out of supply, you will notice that the crews therefore get a debuff. One being a lot of it depends on where they are and where they're located. But you'll notice an airbase has insufficient supply, and this is barely over the value, and it's already hurting their efficiency by 10%. That efficiency thing will go away soon. Oh, now it's down to 9. Let's take a look. 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. All right, so that actually supply debuff is now gone, even though they're slightly over the supply limit. So that's good to know. You have a little bit of breathing room there. But overstacking an airport that doesn't have great supply will just neuter your air force. And so you want to make sure that you have enough supply for your airplanes as well. Additionally, boats take supply. At these, so all docks also themselves, these dockyards, not dockyards, what was it? Naval bases. Naval bases automatically have supply as well. And so if you're doing a naval invasion, you want to get supply in there, and you're trying to decide between doing a supply hub or a naval base, Let's see how long it would take for each one. So for a supply hub with 15 factories on it at the start of the game will take you a little bit over 4 months. A naval base will take you just over 1 month. And so if you are in a pinch for supply and you're close to a sea or you're fighting the Pacific or whatever it may be, in my opinion, it's better to build those naval bases, over the supply hub. If you're fighting, dead center of Russia, and you're fighting like right here, you got pushed back all the way to here, it might be better to build a supply hub connected by a railroad. The nice part about these naval bases is that you don't need necessarily a railroad to your capital because there's multiple ways to send supply to and from, although I would prefer the landline just because that's more secure. If you don't have a great navy and you're sending all your convoys with supply around the ocean, they're going to get sunk, And so it's definitely a balancing act that comes with time, but it does make intuitive sense the more you play with it. I have had campaigns with the Soviet Union where we finally got to the point where I could start pushing them back. I had my Air Force doing its work, and we fought from, I'd say the line was about here, all the way to about here, right? And down here, there's not as much supply ports or supply hubs. Because of that, I had to stop the attack every once in a while and either connect to a new supply hub via railroad or build my own, and that is a massive investment that affects your industry. So planning for that is important, and I now run campaigns where instead of focusing on, I want to take this town, I want to take that town, I want to take the river line, I also have in there, I'm going to need that supply later on. The amount of supply that can be sent to a particular supply hub, though, is determined by the railroad connection. So you'll see that down on this little pop-up here, you'll see that it has a supply connection from the capital of 20, which is a railway bottleneck from Moscow to Tula as level 2. Each level of train tracks that connects will add this up this by 5, and you can just simply press upgrade bottleneck, and would you look at that? The Tula-Moscow Railroad has been built. And if I move that all the way up, it will only take about 5 days to completely upgrade it, which is a lot quicker than building a hub. It gets a lot tougher, though, when you're like down here. You want to upgrade that whole thing? Well, now I have 4 different railway connections to build up, and that's going to take time. Like this one will take 37 days by itself, 13 days, 16 days, and 33 days. That's a few months of building to increase the supply. And so you want to plan ahead for this. You want to consider how it may affect your troops, all of that. And so just understanding and knowing where supply is being pulled from, how it's being pulled, and how you can improve it will really help your army stay supplied and make it easier for defense or attack. And I don't think there's much else. Few other tips. You can see that tanks divisions, despite this being only 18 width, without any support companies, well, this one's also 18 width, these guys use 0.7 supply, and these guys use almost double that. And so tanks are going to eat up much more supply, and that makes sense. They got trucks, they got more fuel that they use. In general, they need more supply to work. And so keep that in mind, because before No Step Back, you could theoretically have an entire tank army and just split them up enough that in each province it wasn't overwhelming with supply. Now having a big tank army is still fun, but if you put too many tanks in the same area, you're going to start attritioning tanks. And another way to counter that, though, is pull it up, is with these guys. And this is, I guess, there's a bit of discussion on this right now. I personally love maintenance companies, especially if I know divisions going to be fighting in terrible supply areas, because maintenance companies allow you to get your equipment back by improving their reliability, and therefore they're either less likely to break or more easy to fix. You can also use logistics companies, which will reduce the supply as a percentage. And so if you have a large tank division that takes 2.5 supply and you want to reduce that, upgrading these guys is great because you can get up to 40% reduction in supply usage. And so that can go from 2.5 to like, what is that? 1.5 roughly. And that is a massive bonus because then theoretically you could fit in almost twice as many divisions on that specific province, and that is twice as many divisions fighting at one time. Whereas equipment, your reliability goes up by 5 with each one, and so you can theoretically get up to a 20% reliability bonus, which means that your equipment can be crappier, but you'll still be able to get it back and keep it safe and not attrition as bad. And so if you're struggling with supply, that's a great way to balance it out, but understand there's industry costs with each one. What else? These little guys here are two different things. So this is a low supplies pop-up. This is for divisions and provinces. So like this guy right here is attritioning because he has no supply. And he is, what does he have? Supply status is 22%, and he is attritioning at 5.4%. This just tells you this whole area is undersupplied. And so understanding what the supply issue comes from is really important with this. If you're like, Japan, you're invading China, yeah, not much in terms of supply. Sure, they got some big things here, but then, you get past Beijing and you try pushing south to the river line. If you get to the river line, that's great, but your nearest supply is here and here. And that's not going to do you wonders while China's supply is, defending this river line right here. They're going to keep these guys supplied forever. And then even if you push past that, you get these 3 things here, these 4. Then you have a long walk to Nanjing and look at all this empty space without supply hubs. It is tough to do. And so when you're playing as Japan, especially with the update, understanding the importance of supply will change your game because sure, you can have an overwhelming army and overwhelming air force, and that's great, but if they can't fight, they're not going to do anything for you. So yeah, that should cover all the supply basics. I don't think you can reduce supply with any of the spirits, but I believe this mass assault doctrine actually reduces their supply consumption. Let's take a look. Yep, this one reduces by 10%. So if you use that with all the logistics companies, that's now 50% reduction in supply consumption. So yep, there's another one, 10% there. And I think that's it for these guys. But so understanding supply consumption is very important. You also can get some with infiltration. But yeah, so if you're trying to overwhelm your enemy, paying attention to, and overwhelming I mean like have just a massive, massive army, paying attention to how supply works and reducing how much consumption you have will go a long way. Yeah, so thank you for watching the video. If you have questions or you enjoy the video, please leave a comment and a like. Have a great day, guys.